Jennifer from Fiber Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet these super cute, quick gift mittens. This is a fun and very fast little project that you can make. Now these are sized for an adult woman, although a big kid could easily wear these as well. We're going to learn how to make this ribbed cuff, which is very easy. Work upward to make the hand part and decrease the top. Then we're going to learn how to do the thumb and decrease the thumb. They're easy and fast, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun making these. Now, before we get started, I wanted to mention this is part of our 12 Weeks of Gifting series on Fiber Flux. Every week from now to the end of the year, we're going to do a quick gift project. We have a bunch of these projects that we've done already, and I'll put the directory of links down below so you can see everything we've done so far. We've done scarves, we've done hats, mittens now, and we have some other projects coming from now to the end of the year. Also, if you share your projects and make these mittens or any of the other projects in the series, be sure to use the hashtag FiberFluxCal, and we have 2 community groups that you can hop on and join, one on Ravelry, one on Facebook, and I'll put the links down below for those. So let's get started. Now let's look at these mittens. These are, again, really easy to make, and they are about 11 inches tall and about 4 inches wide, and the cuff is just a little bit bigger because of the ribbing, 4.5 or so. Now I'm going to, throughout the video and on the Fiber Flux blog, I'm going to share some notes if you need to make areas taller or wider. You can find those notes on the Fiber Flux blog. If you need to make your mittens a little bit bigger, if you want to make your thumb a little bit longer, for example, there will be some sizing notes if you want to make your mittens a little bit bigger. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, a ruler or tape measure is super helpful to get your mitten size correct. You'll also need an 8mm L crochet hook and your yarn. We're going to be using Red Heart's Super Saver Chunky. Now, as a side note, this is part of that 12 Weeks of Gifting crochet along where we're making 12 easy gifts leading up to the holidays. And we're going to be using this Super Saver Chunky yarn and this 8mm hook for all the projects. Now, for these mittens, I'm going to be using the Flamingo colorway, and each skein of this is 173 yards. So if you do need to substitute yarn, just look for a hook size that recommends, or a yarn that recommends the 8mm L crochet hook and is a 5 or bulky on the yarn weight scale, and you'll be just fine. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to begin by making the cuff of our mitten first, working upward to do the hand part, and then we're going to add the thumb on last. So let's grab our yarn. And what we need to do to begin is to put a slip knot on our hook. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Next, we're going to chain 8. So let me just zoom in so you can see. To make a chain, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So here is our starting chain. The next thing we want to do is, in the second chain from the hook, we're going to work a single crochet. So this loop here does not count. Go 1, 2. So in that second chain, we're going to work a single crochet. Insert the hook into the chain, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. Work a single crochet in each chain across, so just do the same thing all the way across. So our cuff is going to be built as a strip, and then what we're going to do is join, when we're done making the strip, we're going to join it together and then make the cuff, okay? So that's row 1. For row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn. Then what we need to do is work a single crochet into the back loops of our single crochets from the previous row. That's going to give us this nice ribbing that you see on this mitten here. Okay, so when you're working into the back loops, what you need to do is turn your piece towards you like that. And if you look at the top view, you'll see that there's a series of V's. So in the front loop, that is the front part of this V, that's the front loop. The back part of the V is the back loop. So we want to just go in the back loops. So insert the hook into the back loop, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. Then what we're going to do is just do that in every back loop all the way across. And again, this will create some nice ribbing that we'll need for our mitten cuff. Okay, and then what we're going to do is even in that back, that last one there, we'll do the same thing, work in the back loops only, okay? So just keep repeating row 2 over and over again until it's 8 inches tall, and then we're going to rejoin, put our cuff together, and begin working on the hand. Okay, so my cuff is 8 inches tall, so the next thing we need to do is join it together and create this tube shape, okay? So what you want to do is sandwich your ends together like so and sort of line them up. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, now you already have your loop, you don't want to cut that yet. And let me zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So while everything's still on the hook, you're going to go into that next layer. You can get this tail out of the way, we'll deal with that later. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through everything that's on your hook right now. And then what we're going to do is turn our work and we're going to slip stitch across. So just make sure you go into both layers of your work, and you're going to insert the hook into both layers. Bring your loop through. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. So just slip stitch across to join these edges together. Just like that, okay? I'm just coming up to the end here. Just make sure when you go through both layers, you're catching 2 loops per layer, okay? Otherwise, you might distort it a little bit. Okay, so we now have a cuff, and it looks like our other cuff, okay? The next thing we're going to do is, now that we have a cuff, we're going to start building upward. All right, so what we want to do is work a single crochet in each of these holes around the top edge. You want to make sure you have 16 though. That's especially important because you want your mittens to match. You want them to be symmetrical to each other. So it's important that you work 16 single crochets. Now if you need to put 2 in one hole or kind of stretch them out a little bit, just do what you need to do to get your 16 in there, okay? So what we're going to do is insert the hook into the first hole, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. That's 1 and 2. Now, sometimes when you go into some of these larger loops, it's going to create a gap. So what you want to do is sort of go in between, if you need to prevent it from being too open and holy, okay? So that's 3. And then 4. See how I have a big loop here? We don't want that. It's going to create, you don't want air to come in, okay? So try to go in between the stitches sometimes. Okay, we have a couple now, so we're on number 6. Okay, and that's 7, and then 8, 9, 10, 11. Might need to wiggle it in there on some of them. 12. See how I'm sort of looking ahead to see how much spacing I have. Okay, next one. Whoops. 13. 14. Whoops, and you don't want it to go in those very big holes because it'll create openings. Okay. 15. and then 16. So however you have to do it to space them out evenly. And now we're at the beginning, so we want to join with a slip stitch to close the round. Insert the hook into that chain or that stitch from the beginning, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already in your hook. So now we sort of have the foundation that we're going to build up. So just make sure that you have 16 stitches around the top of your cuff. Okay, so now we're going to start building our mitten upward. So what we want to do is work a chain 2, 1, 2, then we're going to work a half double crochet into that very first stitch. So wrap yarn around hook, insert it into that very first stitch, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 3 loops. That's the half double crochet stitch. That's the stitch that we're going to be following throughout the rest of our hand part of our mitten. Okay. Then what we want to do is work 2 half double crochets into the next stitch. So 1 and 2, and then 2 half double crochets into the next stitch. So 1 and 2, okay? That's going to give us build it up a little bit here so we can start to transition into that thumb area, okay? It gives you a little bit of space because the way your hand is shaped, you do have a little bit more width here than on this side, okay? So next, we're going to work a half double crochet into each stitch around, okay? So go ahead and just work a half double crochet all the way around your mitten. Whoops, just 1 per stitch, okay? I'm just going to continue all the way around. And I will say these mittens work up super fast, so you can get a pair of them done in an evening. And any of the other projects we've made, the scarves, the cowls, you can make those to match the same yarn or same colors. Okay, we're at the beginning, so in that second chain up, we're going to join with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? So your mitten is starting to get a little bit of height on there. So for round 2, what we're going to do is chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to work a half double crochet in each stitch all the way around our mitten. Okay? So just work a half double crochet all the way around. And these half double crochet stitches I really love for things like this because you get a little bit of height, so it certainly speeds up your project, but it's still a pretty dense stitch. You're not going to have a super tall post like a double crochet would or a treble crochet would, so you're still getting that density and that coziness of the stitch, but it is a little taller than a single crochet, which is a little shorter and would take longer. I also like the half double crochet too if you need a little bit of drape, but you need some sturdiness. It's kind of like a good in-between kind of stitch. Okay, just coming around here. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch to close that round. Okay, so that's round 2. Now, to continue, what we're going to do for rounds 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to work 3, 4, and 5 and just repeat round 2. So if you need to see round 2 again, feel free to back up the video, but for rounds 3, 4, and 5, we're just going to do the same thing, okay? I'm going to go ahead and work my 3, 4, and 5 by repeating round 2, and then we'll rejoin in just a moment. Okay, so I repeated rounds 3, 4, and 5, and all we did for those rounds was just repeated round 2 for that. The next thing we need to do is create the thumb opening for our mitten. So if we look at our other mitten, when you slip your mitten on, you need to have an opening so your thumb can pass through and go into the thumb part of the mitten. Now we did the increase here because this is a wider part of your hand. This is called the thumb gusset, okay? So we've kind of set up for this part here. So what we want to do for round 6 is just chain 2, work a half double crochet into that very first stitch, just like that, and then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we need to skip 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then work a half double crochet into the stitch after that. Okay? So you can see we've created a hole so your thumb can pass through when you wear it. Now just simply work a half double crochet in each stitch after for the remainder of the round. Okay? So just work your half double crochets. This is the rest of this round is very similar to what we've been doing already. And then when we're finished this round, I'm going to take my hook out of here and I'm going to try it on and show you how it's kind of situated onto the hand. Okay, so just work your half double crochets, and then when you get to the end of the round here, just do what we've done before and count 2 chains up, join to close the round with a slip stitch. Okay, so let me move my hook out of the way. Now here's our thumb hole. Now you can, at this point, you can just kind of try it on, and you can see we have our little cuff. We have our, it looks like one of those wrist warmers at this point. So we have our thumb hole, and then we're going to sort of be building up from there. Okay, now if we put on our other mitten, you can see sort of where we're at. We're kind of like at this point here. Okay, so then what we need to do for round 7 is, once again, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, then we're going to work a half double crochet into that first stitch once again, and then remember we skipped 3 stitches. We need to kind of replace those stitches. So in this thumb hole space, we're going to work 3 half double crochets into that thumb hole space. And after this round too, I'll try it on once again and show you. Then we're just going to work a half double crochet in each stitch all the way around our mitten. Now if you're finding that the thumb opening is a little bit tight, for the previous round you could skip chain 4 and skip 4 stitches. You can make this opening as wide as you'd like it to be. Just be sure that for every chain you do, that you're skipping the same number of stitches just to keep things even. And then when you do this round, we skipped 3 stitches, so we replaced it with 3 stitches. If you end up skipping 4 to make your opening bigger, just add 4 stitches in there. It just needs to match. Okay, so work your half double crochets, and then we're going to join in that second chain up with a slip stitch to close the round. Okay, so let's look at our handiwork here. Our mitten is really growing. We put it on, and we have our thumb here. See, we're starting to get a little bit more of height, and we now have some more density over top of our thumb. Okay, so let me just show you. If we put on this mitten and we put on this mitten, I really love mittens, I gotta say. You can see how our mitten is being built and constructed. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, let's put our hook back in there. I like to try it on as I make mittens just to see how everything's fitting. Okay, the next round we're just going to chain 2. This is round 8. So chain 2, then just work half double crochet in the first stitch and in every stitch all the way around your mitten. Okay, so it's just a really simple round. Just going to work your half double crochets all the way around. Okay, just continue around. Now for the next round, let me just wrap this up for round 8 here. Okay, just come right around here and work in that last stitch and then join to close with the slip stitch. Okay. For our next round, we're going to decrease a little bit. If you notice here, my mitten has, when we put it on, it has a little bit of a taper here, okay? So what we want to do is for round 9, we're going to chain 2, 1, whoops, 2, and then what we're going to do is work a decrease over the next 2 stitches. So by that, what I mean is wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the first stitch, bring up a loop. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the next stitch, bring up a loop. Now wrap yarn around hook and bring it through all 5 loops. Okay? So we're going to do that in the next 2 stitches as well. Okay? So wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the next stitch, bring up a loop. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into that next stitch, bring up a loop. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 5 loops. And then what we're going to do is just work a half double crochet in each stitch for the remainder of the round. And that will give you a nice little taper for your fingers. I like when mittens have a nice kind of fitted fit to them because it keeps your fingers warmer. Okay, just work those half double crochets all the way around. And I just wanted to point out that our mitten, our second mitten, is more or less, most of it's done height-wise, and we still have quite a bit of yarn left, so you can easily get a pair of mittens out of one of these skeins. Okay, and then we're just going to close the round with a slip stitch. And we have this nice little taper now. Okay, so next we'll move on to round 10. For round 10, we're going to do the same thing we've been doing. Chain 2, work a half double crochet in that first stitch, and in every stitch all the way around. Okay, so just continue all the way around. Our mitten is getting nice and tall. Now, as a side note, if you want to change the look of your mittens a little bit, you could alternate colors. You don't necessarily have to do the solid color like I'm doing. You could also do some variegated colors, or some self-striping yarns are really fun to do. So you can really get creative with these. You could do the cuff in a different color, or the cuff and the thumb in a different color. Okay, so just continue around with your half double crochet stitches. All the way around. Okay, so here we are at the end, and we're just going to join with a slip stitch to close the round. So that was round 10, just like that. Okay, so for round 11, we're going to do the same thing. So just chain 2, and then work a half double crochet in the first stitch, and a half double crochet in every stitch around. Okay, just go all the way around with those half double crochet stitches. The other thing too that would be really cute is you could use integrate some faux fur into the faux fur yarn. You can integrate that into your mittens as well. Maybe on the cuff, or a couple stripes of it here and there. Okay, so we're just working our half double crochets all the way around. And I love these quick projects. They're so easy, and you can really knock out a few gifts if you have an evening or a weekend to work on these. Okay, join with a slip stitch to close the round when you get to the end. And that is round 11. So really making some good progress here. We are working up the mitten. Okay, so for round 12, we're going to do the same thing. So chain 2, and just work a half double crochet in that first stitch and every stitch around. So I'm going to go ahead and work that round, and then we'll rejoin in just a moment. All right, we are in the home stretch. So just for round 13, we're going to repeat the same round one more time. So chain 2, Work your half double crochets in that first stitch and in every stitch around. Coming up to the end of round 13. Almost to the tippy top of our mitten here. And join with a slip stitch to close the round. So for round 14 and 15, those are the last two rounds of our mitten. You can see we've gotten quite a bit of height here. And we're just going to work on decreasing for the end. So remember when we did a little bit of a decrease earlier to work on the thumb gusset. What we're going to do is chain 2, and we're going to decrease every stitch all the way around over 2 stitches. So what I mean by that is we're going to work a half double crochet part of it. So wrap yarn around hook, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, insert into the next stitch, wrap yarn around hook, and bring through all 5 loops. Okay? Over the next 2 stitches, wrap yarn around hook, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook. Next stitch, wrap yarn around hook, bring up a loop, 5 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring through all 5 stitches, and we're just going to do this all the way around. We're doing a half double crochet decrease over 2 stitches, okay? So just do this all the way around, and that'll add that nice rounded top to our mitten. Okay, so work that over the next 2 stitches. Work that over the next 2 stitches. Bring through all 5 loops, and it's going to give it a nice rounded top to our mitten, and it's super easy to do. Okay, wrap yarn around hook, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring up a loop, 5 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring through all 5 loops. Do that over the next 2 stitches. Work that over the next 2 stitches. We're just doing this all the way around with our mitten. Okay, and then we'll just have 2 stitches left. And then join with a slip stitch to close the round. Same thing we did before. Okay, so for our very last round, we want to do the same thing. Chain 2, 1, 2, and then do the same decrease. Insert the hook into that first stitch. Wrap yarn around hook first. Insert the hook into that first stitch, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook. Insert the hook into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 5 loops on the hook. We're just doing the same thing again for this round. Okay? As you can see, we have less stitches that we're dealing with because we have decreased. Okay? So we're just going to do this all the way around, and there will be a lot less stitches. That's a mouthful. A lot less stitches this time to be decreasing. Okay? And already we have come to the end. So we cut our stitches down and we're already at the end of the round, okay? So once again, join with a slip stitch to close the round. Just kind of turn it, join with a slip stitch, okay? The next thing we want to do is grab our scissors because the top of our mitten is complete. So you're just going to snip and we're going to fasten off. Wrap the yarn around the hook and pull it through. Now what you can do, we're going to worry about all these ends later, but what you can do now is slip your mitten on. Just make sure everything fits nicely and it looks great. We just have to add the thumb at this point. Okay, so you can kind of match it up to your other mitten. They're the same height. They look great. Next, we are going to tackle this thumb, and it's super easy. For the thumb part, what you're going to do is sort of turn it so that the thumb hole, remember we created that before, is sort of facing upward. And then you can tie it into any of these areas here. Just insert your hook, hook the yarn on there, and you're just going to sort of pull it through with your hook. We need a little bit of wiggling. There we go. And then you can just tie it right on. Now, do you remember when we made the cuff, we had to get 16 stitches here? When we do this thumb, we want to make sure we have 12 single crochets. We're going to switch to single crochets just because it's a thumb and I don't want it to kind of poke through. I want it to make it a little bit denser, okay? So you can reinsert your hook back where you tied that yarn on, bring up a loop and chain 1. And then you're just going to work 12 single crochets around. Now see how these larger holes are? You don't want to work in there, because what it's going to do if you do that, it's going to leave a giant hole and it's going to let some air in. So you want to kind of go in the narrower areas if you can. So go in between some of these yarn plies here, but you just want to make sure you get 12 single crochets. So let me back up a second. To do that, you want to insert your hook, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops, okay? Now go over here, and we're not going to go in this big giant hole. We're going to go in between this narrower spot, just to keep things nice and dense, to keep the cold air out of your mitten. Insert the hook, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. So you just want to kind of be strategic about where you're placing your hook. Go into those areas that are a little bit closer together. Insert the hook, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. So that was 3, then 4, then 5, 6, 7, you need to wiggle a little bit, 8, 9, 10, 'Coming around here, 11, and 12. Okay, whoops, I dropped my stitch. Let's try that again. And 12. Okay, so once you got your 12 stitches established, join with a slip stitch to close the round. Same thing we've been doing. Whoops, we're just going through and doing the thumb area. Bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and now our thumb is set up to work. For round 2 of our thumb, we're going to chain 1 and then work a single crochet in each stitch around. So just go all the way around the thumb, insert the hook, yarn around hook, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring it through both loops, okay? So just go all the way around with your single crochet stitches. Just like that. And it's a little bit more snug than when we worked the larger part of our mitten, but just, you know, take your time and it'll be a thumb in no time. Just go all the way around working those single crochet stitches. Now, anytime you want, you can stop and try your mitten on and see how everything's fitting. Okay, and then when you get to the end of your round, got one more stitch here, we are going to join with a slip stitch to close the round. Once again, the same thing we've been doing for all of our rounds. Okay, so we're starting to get a little bit of a thumb. So let me just show you. Our thumb is growing, so we need to just put some more rounds on there. So what we're going to do is for rounds 3, 4, and 5, we're going to repeat round 2, the same round we just did where we just did single crochets all the way around. So for rounds 3, 4, and 5, just repeat round 2, the round we just did. So you're going to chain 1 and then just work a single crochet all the way around your thumb. So for rounds 3, 4, and 5, go ahead and do that now. And then when we rejoin, we're going to learn how to decrease our thumb and create that rounded top of it. Okay, so we worked rounds 3, 4, and 5, and now we're ready to decrease and finish our thumb off. Okay, so what you want to do once again is chain 1, and then we're going to work a single crochet decrease over the next 2 stitches. So insert the hook into that first stitch, and let me zoom in a little bit so you can see more. Insert the hook into that first stitch, bring up a loop. Now insert your hook into the next stitch, bring up a loop. Now wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 3 loops. That's all you do. So work a single crochet decrease over the next 2 stitches. and work a single crochet decrease over the next 2 stitches. We're going to do this all the way around. We're going through all 3 loops. Okay, and then we're just going to do that one more time. And then one more time. Whoops, I keep going into the one across from it. Okay, bring it through all 3 loops, okay? Then we're going to join to close with a slip stitch to close the round. And we have a thumb, and it looks great. So the last thing we need to do is cut the yarn. Now I did want to mention as a side note, if you need your thumb, if you put your mitten on and your thumb, it's like pushing on the top of your thumb, you can add an extra round in there if you need to make your thumb a little bit longer. Okay, so we cut the yarn, now we're going to fasten off. Wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through. Then we need to just weave in some ends. So what we want to do is, this is the outside of our mitten, so we want to just send that tail down through the middle of the thumb, and you can kind of stick your hand in there and pull it through. You're just going to get that tail to the inside of the mitten at this time. Okay, you can straighten things out, and then we're going to take this end that was in the top and also send it through here, because the next thing we want to do, I'm just going to put my hand in there and kind of catch it on the inside, because the next thing we want to do is turn our mitten inside out, and we're going to see all these ends that we just pushed through here. Okay, so what we want to do now is, this is the top, so we want to weave in this here, but what we want to do is make sure there might be a little opening at the top still, so just kind of go into all those top stitches here and just kind of cinch it shut, okay? And then what you can do is leave a little loop, send your needle through, and just fasten off. Then you can go and weave in your end and then trim it. And then you can do the same thing with the thumb. Just make sure there might be a little opening from when you left off. And you can thread your tapestry needle. And then just kind of go into some of those center stitches that you created. Just making sort of like an X here. And then just cinch it shut. And then go in one more time. And you'll want to leave a loop, because we're going to send our needle through that loop to create a knot and fasten that off. So then we can do weave in those ends once more. Just go in through those loops and pull it through and trim. Now remember, we're have our mitten inside out right now, so everything we do, we want to stick to those inside loops here so that things don't pop out on the other side. Okay, thread your tapestry needle and any ends that you find. Now I wanted to show you, if you have like a gap here, see how like you can kind of manipulate that a little bit by weaving the ends in strategically to sort of close that up. Okay, and then just go ahead and weave that end in and trim with your scissors. And then we have one more end at the bottom here. And our mitten looks kind of goofy right now. We're going to flip it right side out and straighten everything up in just a minute. If you need to give it a fresh cut, feel free. Okay, and then just go ahead and weave that in. In one direction, pull it, and then go in the other direction to kind of lock that tail into place if you like. And then just snip that one as well. So now let's grab, here's our other mitten, We can turn it right side out. The hand part, the thumb part. I'm just going to pop that thumb out like that. And just get everything nice and straightened out here. Okay, so if we put our mittens on, they fit very nicely. And if you need to lengthen this area, you can work some more rows and extra rounds in this area and this area for the fingers. If you need to extend the thumb, feel free to work extra rounds before the decrease. And all of those notes for changing the size of your mittens are on the blog as well. And that is how you crochet the quick gift mittens. Now before we go, one thing I wanted to mention is to use the hashtag FiberFluxCal to share your work on social media. And it's always really fun to see everyone's work. And also join our Ravelry group and our Facebook group. Those links are down below, and you can join the community of makers and show off your work, ask questions, etc. So that's how you crochet the quick gift mittens. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again, and happy gifting!